This is the Reading Instruction Show. I am your host, as always, Dr. Andy Johnson. Today we're going to talk about a topic that has become almost a swear word in some circles, whole language, otherwise known as a neurocognitive approach. Let us first understand what whole language is not, and I found online most people who are against whole language are against something they have no idea what is or what it is. They know they're supposed to be against whole language, but they have no idea what it is. They know they're supposed to think Ken Goodman is wrong, but they have never ever read anything that Ken Goodman has written, and he has written a lot. Whole language is not a whole word approach or a look-say approach. They both have the word whole in them, but that's as far as the similarities go. Whole language does not teach children to simply guess what words are. That is an understanding. And whole language does not ignore phonics instruction. It is not phonics or whole language. Whole language includes very direct and very explicit phonics instruction. So 12 characteristics of what whole language is. And whole language and whole language practitioners, theorists, have been evolving. We evolve, nothing stays the same. But whereas a phonological approach would define reading as sounding out words and have a whole bunch of sounding out word instruction to the detriment of anything else, whole language practitioners see reading as defined as creating meaning with print. Meaning is important. We are trying to create meaning, not simply sounding out words. Students are taught 4 ways to identify words in print instead of 1. And to identify words means you see it. It's in your lexicon, but you don't recognize it. So you need a strategy to purposely apply a strategy. That's what a strategy is. You consciously apply some cognitive operation. We use context or semantics, word parts or word families, which is analysis, morphemic analysis, prefix, suffix, and roots, and phonics. We explicitly teach all 4 of these ways, not 1, to identify a word when you don't know it. And by teaching these explicitly, they internalize the process and it becomes automatically so they're able to identify the words quickly. Activities are designed to develop 3 cueing systems instead of 1 to recognize words. And again, you see a word in print and you automatically know what it is. Now, the 3 cueing system is not a skill that is taught. It's not an approach. It's not a strategy. It's a recognition that the brain uses multiple sources of information to recognize words, to see a word and automatically know what it is. And for syntax, we use a lot of maze and close activities. For semantics, we use a lot of close and maze activities. For syntax, we use a lot of writing and word order types of activities. And these can all be used or done within any reading program or approach. And this can be done to reinforce letter patterns and letter sounds at the same time. So it's not exclusive. It's not phonics or, it's phonics and. Teachers create the conditions whereby students can develop their abilities to read and write. Good whole language teachers are good condition creators. Yes, there is explicit and direct instruction. Yes, but we also create the conditions. That means where children want to read and write, where they have lots of good books to read, and they're able to write to express their ideas. We create those conditions. That means addressing motivation and emotion. That's affect. We create the conditions to read and write as well as providing bits of instruction. If all we did was direct instruction and worksheets, that would not be creating conditions at all. That would create the conditions whereby students most likely would not want to read or write. Whole language believes that reading is an interactive process. What is in the head interacts with what's on the page. We do this to create meaning. What's on the page interacts with what's in the student's head to create meaning. Whole language practitioners use whole to part to whole instruction versus part to whole. Let me demonstrate. I could have a puzzle piece and show you this puzzle piece and give you the puzzle pieces one at a time. You would eventually put them together. However, if I showed you the whole puzzle, you'd know where the pieces go. You could do it more easily. Whole to part to whole is I immerse them in real reading and real writing experiences to the greatest extent possible, short bits of instruction, and then they're able to practice the skills learned in authentic reading and writing contexts. Whole language sees reading as pleasurable. It's a pleasurable act. We want to do it. We read, you and I, because we enjoy the books or we want more information. It's seen as a pleasurable act until teachers get in the way and interfere and say, you must read this and master these skills. In the same way, writing, we have this natural inclination to share our ideas and experiences. We use writing to do this. It's seen as pleasurable until teachers interfere and say, you must write this. Oh, you make a lot of mistakes. Let me correct you here. Students are the main scope and sequence. Instead of depending on some publisher's scope and sequence of skills, yes, we have a scope and sequence, but we look at our students, what they need today. They are the main scope and sequence. What skills do they need? Very direct and very explicit of phonics and other reading sub-skills are used. It's very direct because it's directly in the context in which students use them, directly within their own writing experiences or their own reading experiences, real life reading. Here you see an example of guided skills instruction in the context of real books. Literacy is seen as a continually developing skill from birth to the day that you die. You get better at any skill by practicing. You don't get better and get worse sometimes by not practicing. So we need lots and lots of reading practice. And how children learn to speak informs how they learn to read and write. That does not mean they learn the same way, but it informs us because children learn to speak and listen for real purposes. And they are immersed in reading or in speaking and listening. So in the same way, if children are able to read and write for real purposes and immersed in meaningful experiences, they are more apt to learn more quickly and more effectively. Whole language, again, is not a whole word approach or a look-say approach. Whole language does not teach children to simply guess what words are, and whole language does not exclude or exclude phonics. Whole language does not ignore or exclude phonemic awareness activities. Whole language does not exclude direct instruction. Whole language does not exclude the need to sometimes study words and letter patterns in isolation. Not a problem with that. And I am not even opposed to decodable books, as long as they are not the main source of reading material. There's nothing wrong with a decodable book to use to reinforce a letter pattern sometimes. Whole language has not been debunked. I debunk you. Research has not proven whole language to be ineffective. Research has not proven phonics to be more effective. It just has not. Show me the study if I am wrong. Whole language and holistic learning use the natural inclination of the child. you build on that motivation. Whole language is a language learning theory. Whole language practitioners try to keep language learning whole and meaningful to the greatest extent possible. This has been the Reading Instruction Show. As always, I am your host, Dr. Andy Johnson.